How's it going, everyone? In the previous videos, we've been able to create our application and we are almost finishing it. So in this video, we're going to be finishing up our application as well as deploying it to Heroku, which is a platform as a service tool where we can be able to deploy application and be able to share it over the internet. Get started. We're going to first fix some of the mistakes we have. Our app has been complete, but there are some security risks that we have. For example, when you go to our web app, we see that even when we log out, we can be able to access some pages. For example, I'll try going to home route, and then this takes us to the home route without even logging in, which means users can update as well as delete things without having to log in. So let's first fix this. So I'm going to go import a decorator called login required from Django. I'm going to come and say from Django dot contrib dot auth dot decorators. I'm going to import login required. After importing login required, the next thing is going to be decorating those specific routes that we do not want users to accept unless they have logged in. So I'm going to go and decorate those functions. So the first one is going to be the home page where users can be able to create and update and delete. So I'm going to decorate this with login required. And another one is going to be the one for the account settings. So I'm going to also decorate that login required. And the next one is going to be our update. So I'm going to also decorate with login required. Next one is going to be the delete. So I'm going to come to delete. I'm also going to do this with login required. So let's save. When you go to our application and you try to refresh, try to access a page, for example, a home page, you see that we are required to log in and then we redirect to that page. Let's try the settings. So if we go to the settings route, we see that we have our login redirecting us that side. So let's try login. I'm going to log in test user 123 and password for that user. Let's try to log in. And you see that when you log in, we are redirected to that exact page, which is awesome. So the next thing is going to be deploying our application to Heroku. So to do that, you need to have a free Heroku account, which is here. So I have my free Heroku account here. You also need a GitHub account. So let me get in my GitHub. You need to have a GitHub account. And the next thing you need to have is Git. You need to have Git installed. So check if I have Git installed. So type Git and you need to see these commands which show that Git is installed on your machine. And now I'm going to sign into my GitHub. Now for this demo, I'm having a Git repository in here, but let me first remove it. For that, I start from scratch. So I need to remove this by saying rmrf, then I'm going to remove the Git repo. So this is going to remove my current Git repository. So I'm going to carry out the deployment from another repository, which I'll show you in down in the link. I'm going to create a new repository. I'm going to call this Django. Sorry, actually call it Django Heroku deploy. So this is going to be the Django Heroku deployment. So just going to say this is a demo Heroku deploy. Then I make my repository public and then I secret repository. After creating this repository, the most important thing will be the remote link, the link to the remote repository. So I'll copy that and I'll create a new repository within my folder. So before I do this, we need some things within our folder. We need Right now I have a .env file, I have a .ignore file, I have a proc file, and requirements.txt and a runtime.txt. These files are what are going to help us to deploy our application. So I'll first delete this and write it from scratch. So I'm going to delete this file, and I'm also going to delete this file as well so that I recreate it and show you what is going to happen. Also going to delete this. I'm going to create these files from scratch. So to do that, I'm going to create a .env file. So the .env file helps us to keep our environment variables. I'm going to write the .env file, and this .env file is going to have whatever settings, whatever secrets we may have. Now we also need a proc file. A proc file is going to help us to keep the command that's going to run our web server in production. I'm going to run file, and now I'm going to create this proc file, and I'm going to use gunicorn for our production web server. So to install gunicorn, I'm going to run pip for gunicorn, and this is going to install gunicorn. However, I have it already satisfied. Now the next thing I also need is to install the drivers PostgreSQL, as well as the decouple tool that's going to help us read our environment variables. So to do that, I'm going to say pip or python couple, and I have it installed, and I'm also going to install the Postgres tool for the tool that's going to help us connect to our remote database, so which is going to also be installed. After doing this, the next thing is going to be creating our Heroku app. So I'm going to go to our Heroku app and right here, so I'm going to say new, create a new app. Then I create a new app, I'm going to give it a name, so I'm going to call this Django deploy. Let's say Django deploy demo. And this is not, but let's call it a name specific to our application. So I'm going to say notes. So let's call this keep notes. Let's call it keep notes app. Let's call it keep notes app Django. So this is not taken. Now we're going to create this app. After creating this app, the next thing is going to be creating our GitHub repo and then deploying it there. So we're going to go back this side, and before we do anything, we are going to check our requirements.txt. So all of our requirements are within our requirements. So the beauty is we can push our code to GitHub and then connect Heroku to our code on GitHub. Gives us logins, and these logins will give us a clue on what we've done wrong. So to do that, I'm going to try to push this application to production. So I'm going to first create the repository. So I'm going to say git init, and I'm going to add everything. So git, I'm going to stage everything for being committed. Git add all. I'm going to say git init, and so I'm going to call this Heroku deployment. Now, after doing this, the next thing for me is going to be we are going to edit our profile to add the command that's going to run our server. So I'm going to say web. Now we expect that gunicorn is the one that's going to run our server. So I'm going to say gunicorn, and we need to specify the app that's going to run our application, the files that's going to run our application. So when we go to our Cube project and we look into our wsgi.py, we see the specific code that runs our server. So I'm going to call that. I'm going to write that. So app keep. So our project is keep project, and we are having our WSGI file. So we're going to write that. And after writing our WSG file, we're also going to write work file. We're going to save that. And after writing that, the next thing is going to be to let's see. We don't have our runtime, so let's write that. So I'm going to create this runtime.txt file, and what it does is to show the version of Python we shall be using for our deployment. We need to specify that this is going to be Python 3.9.2, and let me check. So this is going to be 0.9.2. If I save, when you go to our virtual environment and you type Python, we have 3.9.2, which is good. Now, after doing that, the next thing is going to be pushing our code to Git. So remember, I've created a local repository, and I've added the changes, staged them for committing, and then I committed them. Now let's also commit the latest changes. So I'm going to say git add git commit name. So we're going to say let's just say add file. Now after doing this, I am going to push these changes to GitHub. So I'm going to add the remote link, the link to our repository. So you need to come and say git remote add origin. I'm going to paste in that link from GitHub. After pasting it in, I'm going to push to the GitHub repo by saying git push u origin main. This is going to push our code to GitHub. Now, after our code has been pushed to GitHub, we are going to go to our Heroku. So when I refresh, we see that our code has been deployed to GitHub. Now let's go and try to connect this to Heroku. So I'm going to connect this to Heroku. I'm going to say connect GitHub. So I'm going to search for the repository. So the repository is, let's see the name of the repository. So it's Django Heroku deploy. So we're going to write that. So I'm going to say Django Heroku deploy. I'm going to search for that. Now when I search, a specific repository I want shows up. And after, we are going to specify that we need automatic deploys. What automatic deploys do is they help us to push our code. They help us to be able to push our code to GitHub as well as to update the app in production. So let's enable automatic deploys, and after enabling automatic deploys, we are going to deploy the main branch that we see what's going to happen. So I'm going to deploy the main branch. So as we see, our application is being built. Let's see, and going to install all the required packages. So we see that we are currently having an error, and the error is because we haven't yet set disable config. There is a config variable we haven't yet set. Now to set config variables with Heroku, you need to install a tool called Heroku CLI that helps us to interact with Heroku within our command line. So to install that, you need to search for Heroku CLI. So go and search for Heroku CLI and then go to your specific operator. You choose the Heroku CLI for your specific operation. So you go to download, then you install that one. So me, I'm already having one. I'm on Windows 64-bit, so I install this one. If you're on Mac OS, you can run this, and if you're Linux, you can follow these installation commands. So after that is done, what we're going to do is to set this config variable here. So we're going to call to set this config variable. So I'm going to copy this command After copying it, the next thing is going to be to paste it and run it within our terminal. So when I type Heroku, typing this to show you that Heroku is installed on my machine, Heroku CLI. So when I type Heroku, I see these various commands that are specific to the Heroku CLI. So next thing is going to be to set that config variable, and then I have to specify the app as my app name. So I'm going to search for that app I'm working on. It's keep notes app Django. So I'm going to copy this and paste it. So what this command is saying is I'm configuring the disable collect static setting or the config variable, and the note I'm doing that for is the keep notes app. So we're going to run this. So I'm being relocated to the browser to log in. So I'm going to press NEQ and I'm going to log in with my browser. So I'm logged in and logged in as that. So it's going to set that disable collect static. After that is done, we are going to redeploy our app. So let's try to do that. So I'm going to go back to the app and we're going to try to redeploy again. Our app is building now. So once our app is finished, they say that it has been deployed to Heroku, and we're going to just go and click open app. Now we see that we have our allowed host settings not being set, so we are going to be able to fix this. So I'm going to go to our application here. We're going to go to our settings. Now we are going to change our allowed hosts to allow all hosts. So we're going to add star for our hosts. And another thing we forgot to do is to install white noise. White noise is a tool that's going to help us to deploy our static files in production. It's always difficult for Django to make us use our static files in production. However, white noise creates middleware that help us to be able to view our static files such as our CSS files while in production. So we're going to go and type deploying static files Django Heroku. Let's also type white noise. So we are going to come this side on devcenter.heroku.com. Then you're going to see a specific settings. So we are seeing static root, static URL. And another thing we need to install is white noise. So as you see, they are telling us that Django does not support serving static files in production. However, white noise can help us to integrate them in our application. So let's do this. We are going to install white noise. I'm going to come to our terminal, say pip install white noise. Now this is going to install white noise, and we're going to also pip freeze it in our requirements.txt. So I'm going to write this in our requirements.txt. After that is done, the next thing will be adding white noise to our middleware. So I'm going to copy this middleware line, white noise.middleware.white noise middleware, and I'm going to first close that, then I'll come to our application and look for the middleware settings. So I'm going to add this, save, and then I'm also going to add the static file storage settings. So I need to come and copy this, add it to the extreme bottom. So I'm going to come and say static files storage, then I'll save. After doing that, we set this to 1 and set disable collect static to 1. So after that is done, we are going to try to redeploy application. So we are going to add or it commit, and we're going to add, so let's just say add white noise, and then we're going to just push this. So when we push, since we have automatic deploys, we are going to be able to see our changes. So let's go to Heroku, being able to deploy apps. So I'm going to go to overview, and you're seeing that our application is now building because we enabled automatic deploy. So we're going to view the build progress. Our app is installing the necessary dependencies. So now our app has been able to be deployed. So let's go and open it up. So we are going to refresh this. See? So now we are having our static URL. You are using static files app without having the settings, static root settings to a system file path. So let's say this, and so we are currently seeing these errors in production because we have debug true, but we're going to set this. So the next thing we're going to do is to go back here where we saw that static files, and we are going to be seeing that static root settings. So we're going to set this. We're going to go to our settings and set that. So we're going to say static root is going to be, so we are going to join our base dar. So we're going to say base dar. Since we are using pathlib, we're just going to say base dash slash, then we shall say static. Shall just join this with static and save. So let's try to also add this. So we're going to say fix error. Don't have a descriptive commit message. So I'm going to commit that, and after committing that, I'm going to push again. So we're going to try as hard as we can to finish this. I'm going to go back to our application and see the overview. So it's building again. Let's see what we have here. After our app has been deployed, we are going to come and check it out. So I'm going to refresh. And now we see that our application has been rendered.